away, we can do our chit chat. But I know there's at least a few people there in the chat. So, hello, people on the stream. Say hello, people.
Hello, people.
Hello, people.
So, how's everyone doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
What I've been saying to people is all right, all things considered.
My go-to has been hanging in there. You know?
I am feeling slightly better, given that I am on vacation this week. So I had it already planned before everything hit. And given that this is a marathon and not a sprint, I figured still taking it off would make sense.
Good.
And now it means I just have full-time job.
Yeah, no. That has been the hard part of working from home. My wife works from home. She's been working from home since last summer. So she's used to it, but she just keeps working as usual, which means I'm doing my job and also trying to juggle the kids as much as they need juggling at this point. At least they're a little older than yours, so they're not quite as hard to juggle. Quinn, how are you?
Yeah.
You getting by all right?
I'm doing good. I mean, like, a lot of stuff in my personal life was like going really well, and then you know, the world's sort of burning outside, right? Like, you know, like up and down, peaks and valleys, right? You know, it's been weird. You know, I've been working from home for going on a decade now. So it's just like, okay, I work, but then I also have to manage, you know, my son, get him from moms, and you know, also do school stuff, and sort of juggle between all that stuff. It's just like a extra juggling and stuff now. I had like a scare a little while ago, like really sick, and you know, made her get a few weeks ago. I made her get tested. And then they were like, well, we have a backup. So you won't get your test for 2 weeks. Like frightening, right? Like better. You know, we kind of like fussed over it. And then it turns out she got her test back and she did have it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So you know, lucky, dodged a huge bullet, but
yeah, but her symptoms just weren't quite that horrible. It's like she didn't have to be hospitalized or anything.
Apparently, no. Just sort of took care of it, and you know, had some, you know, too, because it seems like she lives like 8 hours away. So just sort of all I could really do was sort of call, and then other family members were able to help her out with things, but it was like. It was kind of nerve-wracking, and then she got better, and then we found out, you did have it. You did have it. Yeah, it was weird.
Wow.
Yeah, it was weird.
Well, I'm glad that had a happy ending.
And yeah. And I was gonna say that. It's all my fault because this whole thing is my fault because Quinn and I ran into each other in person. A few weeks ago.
that was funny.
We're like, we're gonna go hang out soon.
Yeah, well,
and then the world was like, oh no.
You had to jinx it, didn't you?
I've heard a lot of people say that on Twitter. They're like, what did you do to make this happen? Did you make like really cool plans for 2020?
2020, by the way, is fired. Like 2019 set a pretty low bar, and it was just like all you had to do was just step over it. Right, the bar's almost on the floor there. And 2020 was like, hold my beer. No, I don't want to hold. And then it was just kept going.
No, I worked so long and so hard to get my doctorate and get a job in higher education, and this is the year I had to start teaching college. Like really, like. This is how I finished my first year of teaching at this level. Like it's a mess. So here we are.
Well, on the upside, it's unlikely to get harder.
Right?
Harder.
It's all downhill.
Right? Like you just start with let's just think of this as resistance training, right? Right. Just like heavy weights, and then we're gonna be like a reverse.
It's like the New York of catastrophe years. If you can make it this year, you can make it any year.
Perfect. All right, should we go ahead and get started? It's enough random chit chat for people to catch up on the video. All right, let me hit record for the audio separately here. We are recording. Everybody say hi to Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Hey, Sam.
Quinn, have you talked to Sam much lately?
Not forever.
So this is your first message back to Sam in a long time. There you go.
Yeah, I know. How you doing?
All right, so we ready to go? Let's get to it.
Yeah.
All right. This episode of the Tome Show is brought to you by listeners like you. Thanks for using the Tome's Amazon and DM's Guild affiliate links and for becoming patrons at patreon.com/The Tome Show. Welcome to the Tome, a D&D news, reviews, and interviews show, and I'm your Tome host, Jeff Greiner.
And I'm Tracy Hurley. And in this episode, number 337, we're going to don our armor, sharpen our swords, and slay the beast that is gaming and isolation. Joining us in this episode is a cadre of people who are quite adept at combating loneliness with gaming. First up is the nicest, most creative people in gaming, a prolific blogger and podcaster back in the days who never quite took his toes out of the water. Welcome back, Quinn Murphy.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Also joining us is the Tome Show's social media manager, regular contributor of DM's Guild products, including a bunch of stuff. Fat Goblin Games on these episodes about as often as the hosts are. It's good to see you again, Israel Alvarez.
Nice to be here as usual.
All right, I do want to remind folks that if you want to see a Tome Show recording live and unedited, you can watch us record at twitch.tv/Tome Show. Where you can also follow us and be notified whenever a recording is about to start. And if you miss a live recording but still want to see the video, the Tome Show has a YouTube channel where unedited video gets posted after the live recording. You can't participate in the chat, but you can see all of our lovely faces, as well as the behind-the-scenes flubs and other things that make me look dumb in the unedited episode.
And then now into this episode. We're recording this episode amidst the global pandemic of early 2020. We don't know when you're listening to this, so people in the future, I hope describing the pandemic as being in early 2020 is unnecessary. Because of that situation, many people's gaming lives are floundering, and what we don't need in this time of isolation is to let that which brings us joy fade from our lives. Sorry, Jeff. A lot of people have given advice on how to play online, and we'll discuss that at some point as well. We wanted a conversation a bit different to discuss our take on the situation. So let's start off with how is everyone doing right now?
I am doing all right. Usually I tell people that I'm not too shabby. That's kind of my catchphrase, but I think I'm shabby. I'm shabby. I'm finally adequately shabby. Yeah. But I'm making it. But I'm probably playing more D&D than I ever have. Quite ironically.
Yeah, playing. So I'm doing pretty good. All things considered. I am doing also quite a bit of gaming. I'm playing I determined early this year that I was going to like play every game on my shelf. At least once this year. I have big shelves. It's like quite an undertaking. But I've been doing really awesome. I'm like just shy of like a dozen in April right now. Doing good. This is pretty good.
A dozen in April?
A dozen total by
April. I was gonna say. You've been playing like every day this month. Like that's amazing. I want your life.
Yeah, because we're recording this on the 15th, right?
Yeah. No.
I've only had a couple weeks this year where I haven't gamed. Just I've gamed more than I got to game all of 2019.
That's awesome.
By now, so I'm happy.
Yeah, that's a good life. Yeah, no, things are going well over here as well. I am pleasantly surprised with and pleased with how well my children are doing with the situation, and I'm getting by all right. Work is still happening, and so at least I have that, right? I'm not in one of those professions where people are getting laid off and there's just and suddenly there's no income anymore, right? Both my wife and I are working from home, and the kids are getting by okay. And to a degree, I kind of feel like as a teacher for so long, I've had a little bit of training leading up to this because in the past I usually spend like a couple of months every summer just sort of hanging out in my house most of the time, right? I might run the kids out to camp or something every now and then, but I've spent a lot of time just sort of sitting around being a home buddy for a while, so working from home and getting things done here. So yeah, we're getting by. Tracy, what about you?
Start off by saying I can start off by saying that both of us still have our jobs. Both of us still have our jobs. But we also almost have 4-year-old at home. While we're trying to work. Who does not want to go to sleep at night? Who does not want to? And I don't mean that. I'm not trying to complain. And I don't mean that. I'm not trying to complain. Just I'm. And I also probably know that I have people probably know that I have. So you may see that I'm painting right now because basically I feel like I'm always having. I feel like I'm always having a low grade anxiety attack. So it'll be interesting. So I'm looking forward to some of the advice on how folks are gaming because we haven't been able to as much yet. And we do want to get that in there.
That's awesome. I mean, that's not awesome, but it's good, at least good that you're getting by and you've got your coping mechanisms and you're doing okay. So I want to go around with everybody again, and we can just go in the same order. But I want to ask sort of specifically, how has your gaming life changed from what it was to what it is now as a result of the pandemic and this new sense of isolation? I think it's worth discussing this topic in this way, not just for people who are going through it right now, but things might come up in life where there are periods of isolation in your life for various reasons. And so this might be helpful for people going through that as well. So, Ish, how has your gaming life changed as a result of the situation?
So, and this is going to sound kind of circuitous, but earlier this year in February, and by they I mean the people in charge of my job, had told us that they were going to close our schools, and so that was kind of a patch for us at the all boys school, and so things were winding down, and so things were winding down. Before the pandemic happened. And so, as soon as the pandemic started, I was like, well, okay, this is great. They're going to shut down schools, and I have to look for a job. So as things were winding down, and as people were trying to figure what they wanted me to do, before I was entering phones and letting people into the door, I was kind of sitting around doing nothing. So I made my full-time job. So I went from probably like 5 games a week to maybe 12. It's a little crazy. And it's now I did get a new job, which is great. And I'm going to start on Monday. And it's also going to be remote because it's still with the schools, but I'm probably going to cut back after that. But these last 4 or 5 weeks, I've been doing like a game every weekday with the middle school student group that I'd been doing, partially just to keep them kind of occupied and sane because they bugged me for it about every day. And then on top of that are all of the games. There's like my Wednesday Adventures League group, which we still get together. There's my Sunday Eberron group, which has been going strong, and they would probably send police over to my house if I didn't run a game for them on Sunday. And then I've got a couple of other things going. I actually have been running a new game on Fridays for my video game at part-time, and we stream that so that we can kind of keep awareness of the video game store up while we have to be closed. So that's kind of like my public service to them, so that like we've got some thing going, so people kind of keep it in their minds, so that when they can reopen, people kind of are like, oh yeah, level 7 games. And then there's another Eberron game that I have on Tuesday. So yeah, that's a healthy stock of games that I'm running pretty much. Like I said, I'll probably cut back, but I think I might have squeezed like half a year worth of gaming in just the last 5 weeks.
That's amazing. That's a lot of amazing amount of gaming.
Yeah. And I believe all four of us are in states where we're living in stay-at-home orders. Is that right?
I can definitely say for Colorado that is correct.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right.
I can say for Massachusetts.
Yep. And Indiana as well. So okay, Quinn. So how has your gaming life changed as a result of all of this?
It is. I had one face-to-face D&D game that we were really, like we were doing about monthly, and that kind of has gone away, and we're gonna bring it back up into Roll20. I had before this, I had a bi-weekly Pathfinder 2e game, and then I just been playing like random games here and there, and like basically of keeping that going. Like I've got like last week we started a Friday night game night over where you just pick like light weight games like For the Queen, which is like a really great one. I'll probably bring that up later, but so like sort of lightweight games, and playing stuff locally with my girlfriend, and trying to rope my son into it occasionally. Just like and I'm lucky to have a Discord where we've got about like 70-80 people on it. It's like, not like huge, but it's enough people to get games going consistently. And so it's nice. So people will be like, hey, I want to run this on there, or like tomorrow night I'll be running like we're doing a sort of Western Marches meets Starfinder meets Cowboy Bebop kind of thing. So we all play like bounty hunters in this like frontier space thing, and so it's just like bounty hunter of the week, bounty of the week kind of thing. So we'll be like doing that, and so like a couple GMs and stuff like that, and so like just games just sort of like forming here and there. So it's pretty nice.
Okay. Good. So in terms of my own gaming life, I have a weekly game group that I actually I was able to find this group before I ever even moved here to Indiana, which I did last summer. And they were a group who had lost their DM, who had left, and I was a DM looking for a group, and so it was serendipitous. We all got together, and we've been playing weekly at my house now for months, right? Pretty much since we got here. And then the whole the pandemic started. My job had my college had decided to go to online teaching only, and was sending all the students home and doing all of that. But we weren't quite under stay-at-home orders yet. And then there was one more game session where people were starting to shelter, even though the order hadn't come out yet to shelter in place. But we were getting like a lot of the suggestions, like no more than, don't get together in groups of larger than 10 and that kind of stuff, right? And I did the math. I'm like, well, if everybody shows up that usually shows up for gaming, we'll have 10 people. We're not more than 10. So we got one last session in. And then like that next Tuesday, they announced the official shelter-in-place order. So very quickly, I had transitioned over to using Roll20 to keep the game going, and we're still getting together. We're following the same schedule. We meet at the same time. We do the gaming on Roll20, and we still meet every session. And if anything, oddly, like some of you mentioned, I'm probably getting not as much extra gaming as the two of you are, Quinn and Ish. But I'm getting a little bit more gaming in than usual, actually, because I've been playing with my sons a little bit as well. Because they're around all the time and they need entertainment and whatever. So I'm playing some games with them every now and then, which is going nicely. So, Tracy, how has your gaming life changed?
I don't know. it's a hard thing to answer because we had been between groups in part because of the birth of my son a few years ago. A lot of but I had been I know people who saw me on Twitter and stuff know that I've been buying a bunch of stuff that I was finally ready to sit down and start playing. It's a little harder to figure out how to fit that in only because I do the morning shift. So I actually usually go to bed by 9:00. So that makes it a lot harder to fit stuff in. But get some sort of gaming going on as our team. Other teams at my office have also done this as a way to help with the fact that we don't have the water cooler conversation or whatever you want to call it anymore. That's how they've been doing a lot of the social bonding. So hopefully that will help with getting a little more gaming. And then I have been doing a lot more phone games with my child. Oh. So that's been fun too.
Yeah.
Because
so you've been between groups, but we're just gearing up, and then it got sort of squashed by the situation, right?
I was at PAX East. We found this new game that uses runes. That's like a Viking game, nice. And it was so. Fred and I can play it. We just have to find the time. Going back to the earlier conversation of so we're both still expected to work pretty close to 40 hours a week, plus have our almost 4-year-old home all the time because daycares are obviously closed. So it gets very interesting trying to fit in everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having time to think. That's the hard part for me right now.
Right. So it sounds like 3 of us have found some solutions, and Tracy's got some things that she's doing as well in terms of just playing at home. I'm curious, other than just sort of playing with the people you're stuck with in the house, what solutions are people finding? Although I think that's a very viable one. I think the idea of, hey, now I get to play more games with the people I live with is actually a great solution to the situation, right? Mm-hmm. My sons and I really love playing Dungeon Mayhem from Wizards of the Coast. It's a great little game. And so we set up these relatively elaborate sort of rules, and we're going to have for this tournament, we're going to have a 3-person tournament where we each have to play the other person 4 times, and then we'll have a 3-person series as well, and which character you're playing is randomly determined, and there's point values for doing certain things in the game, and we're having a good time doing that kind of stuff. Plus, I've been running them when there's time through the Titan's Grave campaign from Fantasy Age. So I actually started that months ago, but then it kind of fell by the wayside. So we've revived that campaign, and we're playing through that every now and then too. Just whenever we have an hour or two before I make dinner or whatever, we'll play a scene. So, before we get into technology solutions, anything else like that people are doing in terms of keeping their gaming life alive?
I mean,
go ahead.
I've been finding a really helpful thing is to have different sizes of games, right? Is having you've got a full on, like a Pathfinder or like D&D kind of thing where you can pull out your character sheets and your dice and kind of sit at it. But then I have For the Queen. For the Queen has been probably the game I've played the most in the last few months because it's this very simple setup of you're accompanying a queen on a journey, and then it's just a bunch of cards with questions of asking oh, what did the queen do for you, or why don't you like the queen, and then people just answer it and go back and forth, and so it's very quick to spin up. And and you could play around I'm actually playing it play by post on a Discord I have. You can play it in a lot of formats really easy, and then everything in between Fall of Magic say is played with a map, and you're it's a similar you're on a journey thing, but it's a little more involved. So maybe a little in between those 2 levels. But if you have a few levels, you can just sort of play with the time you've got a little easier.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess I was even kind of doing that between Dungeon Mayhem and Fantasy Age, right?
Right.
And then my full-blown normal weekly campaign, I'm kind of doing that without even thinking about it. So that's a good point.
Yeah.
Ish, what about you?
So I haven't been doing a lot of like traditional gaming, like without the technological component. But what I will say is that it is kind of shunted me back into doing things a little bit more old timey. I've been writing a lot more campaign notes into a notebook. I've been just sitting and reading my books just because I have the time to sit and do that. Like physical page books, where before I would just have to like scramble through PDFs and try and like copy paste things from one place to another. I think I'm doing that, and not just for campaign planning. It's really I'm doing a little bit of it just for fun, of just like going back through old books and writing down notes for ideas that aren't for a campaign. They're just things that I want to like write down because I think they're neat. And not only is it like old timey in general, but it's like something I used to do when I was a teenager. Like that's the kind of thing that I haven't done since almost high school, really.
Okay, nice. Tracy, have you been able to? You said you've done a little bit of gaming while you're at home with the people in the house. What have you accomplished in terms of that? What are your solutions so far? You said you've done some phone games with your son and had some other games that maybe you got to play with Fred.
And that. Well, we haven't played them yet. We bought them and we're all ready to try playing them. But now, with our split duties, it's a little harder. The other thing, though, what he's been able to do, a bunch of our college friends have gotten together on Zoom, and they're doing more word type games and stuff like that. That we actually used to play together in college. So it's been good there, and I'm hoping to be able to join that soon as well.
Nice.
And I have been reading, like, I bought A Cool and Lonely Courage, which is a book about women of the SOE during World War II who were the radio operators and passing around messages in occupied France. And what's cool, and the one thing I want to do for that game is they actually had built in a mode that's a single player mode. It's kind of like a diary mode, and you can go through and do it that way. So that's the other thing I want to try to get in very soon, but I haven't done it yet.
Okay, nice. So then let's move. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's a very fortuitous purchase that I had, or serendipitous purchase I had at PAX East, which was right before the stay-at-home orders and everything else, because there's a lot of corollaries there, right? Like these women and other folks that were participated in these missions were very lonely. Like they were oftentimes around people, but because of their jobs and the thing that they were doing, they just had to concentrate on it and just try to keep getting through. And they, faced. We don't have odds anywhere near as bad as what they did, but they were still facing like outcomes that weren't always nice.
So let's dig in then to our technological solutions. At least 3 of us have managed to continue our gaming live through various virtual tabletops. I know that Ismail and myself are using Roll20 because he helped me get started on learning Roll20 when this all sort of began. Quinn, what are you using?
I'm using Roll20 and Discord.
And Discord, okay.
Mostly.
So for Discord, are you just using that for the video conferencing and the text?
Yeah, we usually in the running we've been using Discord for the voice there. In the past I've had issues with they could have changed, but I've had some issues with Roll20 voice and video there. And so we just sort of use Discord for voice most days, and then and then using voice lets sort of, especially when you're gaming late night, sort of let you have a sort of no pants kind of rule, and no one has to get gussied up, right, or anything. And then for some games, for like my Pathfinder game, we actually do the game in the Roll20. But then for games that don't necessarily need it, we'll just I have a dice bot on the Discord server, so we just use the dice bot to do rolls.
Nice. And Ish, all of your games are on Roll20 then? You have you're all 12 a week that you're playing?
Majority of them are. There's one or two where people are playing on iPads or they're not able to get to a computer, so Roll20 just doesn't work. So we end up doing just Discord voice. One of the players in one of those games has a 1-year-old baby, and so he'll type everything, but he'll listen to everything. He just can't talk because of all of the things that are going on. But that works out much better, and I actually prefer theater of the mind. One thing I was going to say about all of this playing in quarantine and kind of this massive immigration onto digital platforms is that it's just like real life, where you can play with dice and your character sheet and pretty much nothing else, or you can play with all these elaborate set pieces, and it's the same in Roll20. You can put a little bit of effort, you can put maximum effort, and there's a lot of in between that you get to see. But I try and keep it simple, because if I was doing planning for the 8 games that I'm running right now, and doing all of the elaborate stuff, I'd probably keel over.
You'd be spending a lot of time getting all that set up. My campaign has, my regular weekly game has moved to Roll20, and I had heard, I've never actually tried the video feature in Roll20, because I had heard of people who had issues like you had described, Quinn, that it just hadn't worked for people in the past. It became laggy to do both at the same time. So I play with, I've got my desktop that in front of me with Roll20 going, and then I've got my laptop next to it with, we tried Discord a couple of times, and after 2 times using Discord and people having video issues and Discord cutting out oftentimes my voice so they couldn't hear me, which is a problem when I'm DMing, they eventually said, well, let's try something else. And so last session we just hopped on Skype. As much as people complain about Skype, I use it for the podcast, and so I'm used to it. I know how it works, and it was an improvement over doing the video through Discord. We want to do the video because we like to see each other. We have so little human contact that having that video screen where we get to see each other and ask each other, oh, hey, what are we drinking tonight? Or, what's going on? Or, that kind of stuff is a nice little thing that we miss right now. And so it's nice to have that human contact again. And then I got started within 4 or 5 days. I learned Roll20. I got started with a few. I kind of started on my own, and then Ish helped me with one session just to sort of help me get past sort of that initial hurdle of being able to figure out how to just basically do stuff. And then once I got past that hurdle, it's actually come along really fast. A couple of my players. In Roll20, your players can gift you subscription money. And so a couple of my players are like, well, you don't know what the subscription does, but you're running it on here and you're having to learn it real fast. So here's some subscription money. Do what you want with it. And one of the main features that turns on is the dynamic lighting, and they love it. I've heard people complain.
The dynamic lighting is awesome.
I've heard people, I was just on one of the Facebook groups, the 5th edition Facebook groups today, of somebody whose group just hates the dynamic lighting. It's like, suddenly I can't see what's going on in the map, and we used to be able to when we were all together. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the idea, though. It makes it more realistic. You can't see what's over there. And yeah, my group absolutely loves it. And I've continued, I'll occasionally find, YouTube videos where people are giving tips and suggestions or whatever, or I'll run into a thing like, hey, I've got this dynamic lighting. How do I actually make that work for these different things? And so I'd find articles to read about it, and I continue every week. that we play, I have gone in and taught myself a little bit more about how to do it, and now I have a druid that can actually wild shape. Like I can change the image of his token to the whatever animal he turns into. We've got the dynamic lighting thing figured out. This week I also figured out I was introduced to the extension Beyond 20. So my group wants to continue. They want to continue using D&D Beyond for character sheets and all that. They don't want to use all the mechanics and stuff in Roll20. They just basically want it for the maps. So suddenly having Beyond 20 where is going to be a game changer, I think, because I can get rid of the dice tray I've got sitting at my table now, because I can just pop into the monster stats on Beyond 20 and click a certain attack, and it'll just automatically transport over to Roll20, and all that information will be there. So every week I just get a little bit better, and I get I learn a little something new, and it's amazing. Like there are my group really hates that we can't be face to face with each other and hang out together, but at the same time they really like the mapping and everything on Roll20. So it's gonna be a thing, I think, when we're finally able to get back together again. It's like, oh, well, how could we bring the maps and stuff from Roll20 back to our in-person game?
I mean, I've actually run games like in-person games with Roll20, like put up Roll20 on the screen, and people have iPads or whatever with the maps, and so they could just control we basically exported their character sheet from Beyond D&D into Roll20, and so then they just have everything on there, and so we're just playing in person. But then when there's a combat, I just
throw the maps up there,
the map, and they can just move them on there, and then I have I have a huge TV, and so that's this. But then everyone gets their own local thing on there with so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. That might be what we have to do. I mean, we were all talking, one of my players is like, oh, well, I got a carpenter buddy who owes me a favor. I bet he can make us one of those gaming tables that we could put a screen into. And it's like, well, we could, but somebody's still got to buy a screen, and that's expensive,
Yeah.
So yeah, that might be, I mean, the solution might just be bring your laptop and we'll just put our maps on there. Although one of the other things that I've got a couple of players who are really into painting minis, and I've been painting minis with some of my time in quarantine, and I more or less taught myself how to paint minis through this process. I'd never done it before, but I think it turned out okay. I got myself a little Strahd, right?
Nice.
It turned out okay.
Nice.
So yeah. So we got all these people that are into painting minis. So I think there's a degree to which we would also miss that aspect of the game if we went entirely to Roll20 for maps. So I don't know. I might just keep it in my back pocket for certain encounters where I need it to be spooky and dark, and the lighting is going to matter and whatever. And then for other things, we'll pull out the you can see in the corner here, I've got the big Descent into Avernus giant maps from the Beetle and Grimm Platinum set, right? There's no way I'm not using those, right? So yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out, but yeah. So Roll20, there was a learning curve at the beginning, right? Getting past that initial sort of hump of how do I make this work was tricky, and I think Ish coming in and helping me out with that was huge. And after that, it was just a matter of taking the time and playing with it. Although that's been good for me as well. Anytime I'm feeling overwhelmed by working at home and dealing with the kids and doing everything else, I've been able to be hey, I'm gonna go spend 20 minutes and make tokens on Roll20 and just set up the next map with the dynamic lighting or whatever. Just do a little something to remind me about the love I have of gaming and all that. So yeah, that's been my sort of situation, my solutions. So I'm curious then, I think the next natural sort of question is, and I kind of started to get into this a little bit with myself, I rambled a lot. What problems have come up as a result of of this change in your gaming life? Like, we've talked about what's worked pretty well and what your solutions have been, but what are the hurdles you're still dealing with?
It's scheduling, and that's weird. It's not the same kind of problems that you have where it's like people are busy. They're not, number one. But people, well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. That's unfair. People still are busy. People can still have things that they're doing. But schedules haven't been meshed up because of the unique situations that we're all in. So some people's sleeping schedules might be off. Some people are essential workers. And so there's been a lot more compromise even than in normal times with like, oh, we got to play with 2 fewer players this time, or people dropping out of games and things like that. And I won't say that it's a huge problem. It's just something that I've had to adapt to. But I think we're going before all of this started have at least seen like a 50% change in rosters.
For me, a challenge has been kind of because people are more consistent about online games now, and more people are like there and up for it. For me, sort of overscheduling, like having to like actually like kind of limit what I'm doing, right? And be like, there are a couple of weeks where I was just like, oh, cool. Like, and I look at my feed and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to fit all of this in there, right? And then like half of these I run, so I can't just like bail on this, right? And you sort of can like, it's pretty easy. And I've talked to a few people where it's just like overcommitting to things is real easy. But and then I think for I'm lucky to have had like a play community before this, so it was kind of easy to like ramp and find people to do stuff. But don't have this. I feel like projecting what big problems could be for people if you didn't have that before. Finding a community, finding the group, and then if you didn't know Roll20 before and didn't know someone who could show you, like ramping up in all of these things. It takes time to ramp up into all of this stuff. So I could see that being a general problem for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've actually had better participation and fewer scheduling issues. I'm still working from home and I'm still got the kids and whatever, so I'm not going hog wild, just trying to fill all the hours of the day and saying yes to every game that comes my way. And so we just have our normal game, and it was Friday night before anyway, which I think works out extra well now because by the end of the week, people need to not be worried about work and thinking about that, and they need something to sort of unwind and all of that. Like I mentioned a little bit before, we've struggled with our video conferencing options and all of that. And I don't know that there's a perfect solution to that anyway. I think some of that's to be expected because there's so many people all over the world using a lot of these services simultaneously right now. That there's a certain amount of occasional sort of latency issues and that kind of stuff that I think is to just be expected, right? I've actually been really impressed with how well Roll20 has held up. I haven't noticed any significant like lag or latency issues with Roll20 at all, and I have to imagine their usership has skyrocketed. D&D Beyond probably just about as much, right? So I've been pleasantly surprised by all of that. But yeah, it's tough because we want to be, especially when people like, it's hard enough to really get people into the role-playing storytelling mindset sometimes, and get them to deeply sort of interact with each other in the way that they want to do. But it's even harder when you're not even in the same room, and then your audio gets cut off every now and then, and they missed a thing, right? And you got to say, oh, can you go back and say that again? It's like, oh, but like I was so in my emotions when I said it last time, and now you just want me to go back and repeat myself, right? So that's a thing, right? And it's a bit of a hurdle, and I don't know that there's a solution to that hurdle, but you muddle through, right?
So one of the things I'm having an issue with, and it seems kind of weird to talk about it in here because we're talking about the gaming part of gaming, is just a lot of my online friends and stuff like that are people who are in the industry. And the people that are creating the stuff that we enjoy, they're going through not only the stuff we're going through, but it's devastating a lot of our industry currently. There are conventions that aren't happening, that for some of them, if they don't happen, they might not ever happen again. The supply chains are really hurting a lot of the publishers. We've had, and we started the Tome Show News not knowing it happened like a few months before all this happened. So every 2 weeks we're reporting on the stuff that's happening, and I think that's part of why I've been it's a little hard to connect in the same way of like wanting to jump in a game, because I'm going to be reporting in a week or two later about the newest changes that are happening. And I don't mean to be a bit downer in this episode about it, but it's, I think, an important thing for posterity to at least to record, and also let other people, if they're feeling the same way, know that, yeah, this is really hard, right? And it affects people in different ways, and all of them are pretty much legitimate ways as long as they're sincere.
Right. Yeah, no, and I've heard a lot of those kinds of stories, right? I think at the end of this whole process, I think by the end of this year, after it all shakes out, we're going to have a lot fewer of those sort of small publisher or medium-sized publisher companies, right? That were sort of working on a razor-thin profit margin to sort of keep doing what they love doing, right? I think the big companies will make it through, and it'll be rough, but they'll be okay. And there's a certain size where I think it gets small enough that it's like, well, this is just sort of my side hustle anyway. If it sort of dries up for a few months, it's not a big deal, and I can pop back into it when it picks back up again. But yeah, I think there's that sort of mid-sized group that I think they're just going to dry up, and it's going to be rough.
Yeah, well, particularly Alliance closed. A lot of these publishers had product. They weren't given warning, so they can't ship. So I guess one of the things I wanted to talk about was, if people do love gaming and care about these companies, trying to find ways to continue to support them would be wonderful.
Yeah, if you can. I mean, a lot of our listeners are probably struggling too, so yeah.
Oh no, totally, yeah. And that could be just talking about their games and telling people how much they love it, and hopefully we'll get even more people who want a game and try it out now.
Yeah, no, that's true. I'm in the middle of I have supported several projects from different companies that have been kickstarted, right? And so it's interesting to sort of watch how the different companies at the different levels of experience and where they are in their business or whatever, and what they're doing, right? So I've had some Quinn left us for a moment here, but he'll be back. I've had some of those Kickstarters like send out messages like, hey, our books might ship a little bit late. The production, the lines of production and distribution are bogged down or slowed down or delayed or whatever. But we're still working on stuff. The PDFs will still go out on time. The product will be done, and you'll get your stuff. We promise, right? And that seems to be like a best case scenario, especially because I usually just back at the PDF level anyway. So, but then I've had some others where it was like, hey, this is happening. We're still hoping and planning to get this product done, but we've had to furlough our entire staff. Like, nobody works here at the moment, and they're not allowed to work on this product. And when it's all over, we plan to come back and finish this thing that you kickstarted, and make it all okay. But we'll see, right? And so that's the gamut sort of my experiences with some of these companies and what have you. So yeah, no, it's not just rough on our gaming lives, but there's a gaming industry out there that if you are able to support, do that, right?
Absolutely.
So my last question for our conversation today is, what about the unexpected? Right? We've sort of talked about what we've done and what our solutions are and what problems or what hurdles we ran into, but positive or negative, like what's popped up that you were like, oh, I didn't see this coming, right? Like my conversation about suddenly my group really likes using the maps on Roll20, and how do we transition back to live play and do that, right? That was not expected. I didn't expect this to be a preferable solution to having maps and minis at the table. What other unexpected things have come up for people?
I've joined about 12 Discords. I think my online community has kind of grown because of all of the people that I've connected to recently, and you just see a lot of people reaching out. A lot of people who maybe were used to having a lot of connections in real life are now making those connections, over social media, where before it was just like, oh, well, we'll just talk about gaming. Now I think people are really hungry for like those really solid connections and kind of lasting friendships. I think that's really what's maybe taken me by surprise, is like some of the really strong friendships that I've developed over the last couple months.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead, Quinn.
We can definitely join in on like Discord creep. Everybody's got a Discord now, and but it's good. It's good. I like that. I just have like a kind of like a little Discord habit in the morning now. I just sort of check in on like my favorite communities, and like Discord is pretty good about letting you organize sort of things, and and then mutations and all that stuff.
And on that note, and I swear this happened before the pandemic hit, the Tome Show has a Discord now as well, and you're welcome to come and join us for a conversation here and there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I started my current gaming group was using Discord before I joined the group, and so I had never really used it before. I joined it in order to communicate with them, and I figured, well, I'm on it every day. I might as well get one going for the Tome Show for people who want to pop in. And so it worked out. The timing, I guess, for popping on Discord worked out, right?
Yeah, seriously, yeah. And then I guess for other unexpected stuff. Man, I guess the most unexpected has just been how much like I was mentioning before. It's just like been unexpected, like how much easier it is to like get people on. Like people now treat their online games as kind of like first-class citizens. I've had it before where it's like, oh, we're doing an online game, and like, with people or people you just met online, and like, maybe they'll show up, maybe they won't, maybe they'll cancel, maybe they don't. No one cancels games. Right. Like, or if they do, they like let you, oh, hey, hey, here's this thing going up, like I'll be there. Like people treat those as actual real things now, where before they could just treat them as like ephemeral and sort of less important than their face-to-face, and that's been kind of a pleasant shocker for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I was always the guy, like I had people on that listen to the show know Jeremiah McCoy. He was in my face-to-face group originally when I lived in Raleigh, North Carolina. And he had to move for job reasons and whatever. And he was like, well, I could still join if you want to just set up, a laptop with Skype or whatever. I could still play with everybody and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not gonna, like, I'm not real hip to the whole online gaming thing, and I think it'd be hard to sort of really have that. And I still think that would have been hard, having one person remote and everybody else physically there and whatever. But now, like the sort of barrier, the resistance, I guess, to move to online play isn't nearly as strong with me now as it was, even a year ago, because I had to adjust, and now I've gotten used to it, and I made it work, right? So, Are there unexpected things?
I was just going to add real quick that I did know a number of people in my personal life, and they were younger than me, which was kind of a shocker, that were very reluctant to join Roll20. They want to like add any more complexity to their lives, any complexity to the role playing. But as soon as they started using it and seeing how it worked, that reluctance went away. I think people had this idea that online play was this like weird mechanical monstrosity that made the game not as fun. And I could see that. I think, I go back all the way to AOL Instant Messenger and playing role-playing games on there. It was not ideal. It was fun, but it was not the best. But I think people maybe in the past had experiences like that where, oh, this sucks compared to in real life. You're going to get that parody, right. Or at least you won't until there's like some VR headset or something. But I think we've come a long way, and I think we're in a place where it is a lot more fun, and there are toys for the people who want toys. There's an easy way for the people who want the kind of the quick fix of gaming without having to get the complexity. And I think it's a really cool balance now that we've struck.
Yeah. I wonder what DMing will be like once we're playing remotely in a holodeck, right? That'll be weird. How do I prep that game? Well, I don't know. And then does
that's been cool.
I was gonna say, then does all role playing turn into LARP? So, Tracy, what are you gonna say?
One of the things that's been fun, and it's been more, not for me personally, but watching other people on Twitter, they'll discover somebody, I forget who it was, somebody was painting minis recently, and my Twitter just lit up with people like, oh my god, he's painting minis on the weekend just like I did, and that sort of sharing and finding out of people.
Who was that? Yeah, that was there was like some celebrity doing it, right?
Was his last name Cavill?
Henry Cavill, who he was.
Cavill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was Superman, and he's the Witcher, isn't he? Yeah.
He's the Witcher.
Yeah. Yes.
And
I have a really hard time with names, so that's why it's hard for me sometimes to remember. We know this from the book club, so.
I always the third evil ex-boyfriend in Scott Pilgrim.
Nice.
So I think that's like a nice surprise that people have had.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's been a weird time for gaming, right? Like in some ways, this moment is it is a struggle for gaming, and in the other ways, there's a little bit of a renaissance going on, right? People are finding community, and they're finding ways to connect with each other through their gaming community in ways that they didn't as much before, or differently than they did before. It's weird, and I'll be curious to see in 6 months or come back in a year and whatever, and sort of have this conversation again of like, how did things change as a result of having gone through this? How are our gaming lives different now because we went through this? So, Okay, well, I guess it's time for last thoughts. Anybody have any final things they want to say before we go?
I got one. So when we talk about the tools, like if you're just getting into it, right? Something like Roll20 or the Discord stuff, baby steps will do. Like I would say, sort of, be fine with like you can easily just use Roll20 as like a fancy dice roller, and possibly maps at first. Just have everybody with their character sheets there, or just as maps, and everyone sort of die rolls on their thing, and you just use an honor system. I feel like if you get these tools for your online gaming, just take them piece by piece, because it is an investment and it takes a while to learn. So just start slow and accumulate tricks.
I mean, that's where I started, right? I started off we're just using the honor system, rolling our dice, and I'm just going to use it for maps and some simple tokens and whatever. But then every week it's a little something new, right? By the time this thing is over, I'm going to be a Roll20 pro, man.
Right, you're going to be writing stuff with the API.
That's right. Nice. All right. Any other last thoughts?
I had something. It was there. Oh, yeah. Reach out to anyone that you can about learning how to. If you've never played any role-playing game before, reach out to people you know. Get started now is the best time, maybe, in a weird kind of ironic twist of fate. Reach out to us at the Tome Show. I'm willing to help. I think I've helped maybe about 2 dozen people go from never having played to playing on Roll20, and it's fun. Even just the process of getting people started. It's really cool to see new people kind of take wing to enjoy the game. But yeah, just reach out. There's a whole community of people who are more than happy to welcome you into the game. And I think now is the time. Now is a wonderful time where there's just this flourishing community. It had been flourishing, and now it's flourishing, I think, even more again for these ironic reasons. But jump in with both feet.
And it doesn't. I mean, it took you sat down with me for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes on a Sunday morning, and that was enough to sort of get me proficient enough to run a game, right? And then from there, it was just a matter of doing the work and then learning a few tricks here and there. And every week, and whenever something comes up, hey, I'm going to wild shape into a shark. Can I change my token? No, you can't. But I'll try to figure it out for next time, So, and those things come up, and you just sort of you go one step at a time, right? But once you get past that initial hurdle, it's there's a lot of momentum to carry you forward. So I appreciate you helping me out, and I appreciate your offer to help people out.
Anytime. If I had one last little writer to that to add, it would be that if you've ever played a PlayStation 4 game, if you've ever played a PC game like Mass Effect or Dragon Age, this is simpler than that.
Yes.
And so if that gives you any indication, if you can learn one of those games, you can learn how to role play on Roll20, and it should not be daunting, and that's what I want people to leave with.
And what's better about role playing on Roll20 than playing games on your PS4 is that you actually get to interact with people, which right now we desperately need to be doing. So
it is a premium. Yes,
absolutely. All right. Any other last thoughts people had? Then I'm going to call that the end of the episode.
We'd like to say thank you to our guests. Quinn, where can folks find you online?
On thoughtprimegames.net and _ Murphy on Twitter. And I have a podcast called The Well.
Yeah.
Where short little 15-minute kind of blurbs about RPG stuff.
Awesome.
I'll have to get the URL.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Absolutely.
No worries. And Ishmael, where can folks find you?
Mostly on Twitter, at King Lorathorn or Elven Wizard King. Both of those will lead you to my Twitter, and I'm pretty active there. I also do a little bit on Facebook as Lorathorn Adasseril, but good luck spelling that. So look for me on Twitter. And also I do a number of 5th edition D&D adjacent products for Fat Goblin Games, as was mentioned, as well as I'm starting to do some stuff.
Awesome. We'd also like to say thank you to our listeners who support the show using our affiliate links with Amazon and DMs Guild, as well as those who support us directly at patreon.com The Tome Show, like Jill Sander, Maya McCoy, Doug Palmer, and Merrick Blackman.
And if you want to get a hold of us at the Tome Show, maybe to ask for a crash course on Roll20 from Ish over here, you can, or anything else, any other comments or questions you have, you can email thetomeshow@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter. The show is at The Tome Show. I am at Squatch, SQUACH, and Tracy is at Sarah Dark Magic. That's Sarah with an H.
And that's episode 337, where we cast a series of illusion spells so we could pretend our gaming group is still with us in this episode of
The Tome.
The Tome.
So Tracy, as I say, do we all get to in the stream get to see what you painted?
Oh, nice. Very nice. That's awesome.
Did you start that when we started recording? Or?
Yeah, it was.
I think this has to be our new tradition, right? You need to paint something every episode, and we get to see what crazy things you're inspired by as we talk. So.
Oh, what's the Tome Show? Oh, sorry, you go. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I hope it wasn't too distracting.
No, not at all.
Okay. I think it went well.
What's the Tome Show Discord link?
I knew that's what you're asking, so I'm just opening it up. So, and those links are kind of funky, aren't they?
Yeah, it's like discord.gg blah blah blah.
Right. Invite.
I can put it in the Skype chat if that works for y'all.
Lowercase tn, capital Z, 3, capital X, capital R. Oh no, I'm sorry. Oh no, that is it. I think.
Wait, what was it?
Lowercase tn.
Yeah.
Capital Z. Number 3. Capital X. Capital R.
Okay. Perfect. Joined.
Hey, Game Fiend just joined. And anybody else who happens to be on the stream and wants to join or catches this on YouTube afterwards, at least until the link expires. I think they cycle at every 24 hours or so?
I believe so.
All right. So say goodbye to anybody in the stream watching. I'm going to stop that here pretty quick.
Bye, stream.
Bye, stream.